Hello everyone, this video is my take and deeper dive into an area of history I think worthy of a little contemplation by us all. I'm calling this one Chance and Opportunity in the Middle Ages. It is part of my series, Slow History. This video is also about the inevitable in history, so it would seem. Not historicism, but historicity. A couple of new words. I've been trying to get my tongue around half of earlier today, and I'm still not convinced I have it quite perfect yet. But anyway, historicity. Is that right? I hope so. Wooden churches built in the Middle Ages in England had a tendency to burn down and were also limited in stature. By the late 12th century, however, in addition to St. Paul's, there were 126 solid stone-built churches in London alone. That's one for every 300 people. Foreign visitors would have been impressed by a cityscape unique in Europe. I once had sight of a document from the House of Lords in an archive that detailed the expenses of the reigns of the kings of England from William I onwards. The first three spent a tremendous amount of money on building. Not only in London as well, there were great cathedrals built for all the dioceses of England. And apart from the impressive nature of these mighty structures, apart from the fact they imply wealth, stability, and perhaps a puzzling technical skill, above all, they imply confidence. But also something else that played out across the generations. Toni Mount writes in his 2014 book, this one right here, and I quote, "There were no such things as peasants in England in the medieval period." Close quotes. First of all, and even by the late 12th century, and I need my book, the following: for the better off, more cash and more cheap labour meant more leisure time for the middle levels of society, particularly the London merchant class. Previously, society was reckoned to have three classes: those who worked, those who prayed, and those who fought. The increasingly prosperous merchants and skilled artisans didn't fit this pattern. They were setting up guilds or fraternities to regulate their own businesses. They were learning to read and write like churchmen. And some were beginning to live in houses worthy of the nobility and dressed like princes. This new class was cultured too, commissioning exquisite manuscripts and personal jewellery, employing minstrels, acrobats and players to entertain them, having their floors tiled and glass put in their windows. By the time of the Black Death of 1349 and the subsequent Statute of Labourers 1351, there manifests some kind of idea of what had been happening behind the scenes, so to speak. The statute that attempted to control wages, among other things, was treated with contempt by workers and local lords of the manor, or knights of the shire. Quote, if a lord of the manor had too few tenants, he would pay higher wages to persuade folk to work for him instead of his neighbour. Close quote. Perhaps a quote that has come down to us from Thomas à Kempis is apposite at this point. He said, "The loftier the building, the deeper must the foundation be laid." With respect to the foundation of guilds in the Middle Ages in England, records begin with the Pepperers from 1180. Perhaps there is much to derive from this new beginning. They appear in the historical record for the first time, having been fined 16 marks for operating as a guild without having purchased the appropriate documentation from the Crown, and thus must have existed before this point in time, that is, guilds. Sometime before 1300, a group of guilds had formed together to establish a new grocers' guild. This new guild was responsible for so-called garbling, that is, deterring and preventing and punishing adulteration of food and drink. In 1364, the London vintner John Penrose was found guilty of selling bad wine. The penalty? He was required to publicly drink his own bad wine, a good large measure of it, no doubt, before all the rest was poured over his head. Apparently this kind of punishment was not uncommon for the period. Perhaps this kind of thing, reincorporated in some way into our technically advanced, affluent and somewhat timorous, genteel society, might act as a catalyst for a new confidence sometime, a renaissance of endeavour and robust, wise common sense. I suppose, however, there never was such a thing, and we arrived in our present time in some old way. Indeed, perhaps there is far too much pessimism in our present age. For an American philosopher did mention on UK telly some time within the last 10 years or so that comes across as a philosophical, that came across at the time as a philosophical saying or generic idiom. Quote, "Any old reason will do. Probably any bad old reason. And until we start to think, we will continue to commit abhorrence." Close quotes. Perhaps the more fierce thinking types will manage to allow right to win out in the end. It will be a near thing, I guess. Well, that's it for that one, and bye for now.